everyone, and welcome to the RV Inspection and Care podcast and video. I'm Dwayne, and I'm a certified RV inspector. And today we're going to be talking about the best 50 amp RV generators for 2023. You know, most 50 amp motorhomes actually come with generators right in them. And those generators fit the power needs for that particular rig. But what about those that have 50 amp travel trailers or 50 amp fifth wheels that didn't come with a generator? Well, first of all, let's start out talking about the 30 amp RVs first. You know, 30 amp RVs only need these small inverter generators, and the reason for that is that 30 amp RVs can only handle a maximum of 3,600 watts of simultaneous power. But 50 amp RVs, they max out at 12,000 watts of power. So your choices for portable generators then in that particular range get a lot smaller. And a lot will really depend on how you use your generator too and what you use it for. But the first point that I really want to make here today that's very important is to explain the main reason why we even need a 50 amp service in RVs. You may have wondered that before. Why are there 30 amp RVs and 50 amp RVs? Well, the main reason for putting a 50 amp service in an RV is to support multiple air conditioning units. Believe it or not, that's really the main reason. Because think about it. Just one air conditioning unit requires 3,000 or maybe even more watts to start up and get going. Now, it doesn't run at that level because in many cases they can run on 2,000 watts or maybe even a little less. But just think about that. If you have two ACs starting up at the same time, that is an incredible amount of power. 6,000 or more watts all at one time. And then consider maybe you're running other high wattage devices at the same time, maybe a microwave or a hair dryer. Well, then you can see that there's a lot of power that can be needed when you have multiple air conditioning units. So the question is, do you really need enough to cover all 12,000 watts of power? Is that the size generator that you really have to have? Well, the truth is that it's not really necessary because most 50 amp motorhome manufacturers don't put out 12,000 watt generators. In fact, most of them will probably come in with something like 7,500 to 8,000 watts for their generators. The thing to remember is this, and this is what the manufacturers know. The more generator power that you have, it equals more noise and more weight. So that's an important point to understand. Now let's go ahead and get started on my list of the RV 50 amp generators that I can recommend for you. And number one on the list we're going to start with is a real bruiser, and it is the Duramax 12,000 watt generator. Yes, it will cover all 12,000 watts that you could use in your 50 amp RV. But this is very important. It is not an inverter generator. So what that means is that the electricity it puts out is subject to some spikes along the way and may not be what we call clean electricity for your really sensitive devices like electronics and TVs and so on. So if you use this particular generator, well, then you may need a line conditioner to even out those spikes. Now, it also produces 72 decibels of noise, and what that means is anything above 70 is considered very noticeable from not very far away. So what we're saying is with this generator is I can really only recommend it for off-road use or boondocking, where you're really out there and there's not a whole lot of people around. It would be great for something like that. Now, don't take this generator into a campground. Let me say that for sure. You're going to make some enemies if you do that because of the noise level. However, the good things about it is that it has a 50 amp plug right on the generator. So you just plug your cord from the RV right in, and it's a dual fuel generator. So you could use either gas or LP to power it. It weighs about 224 pounds, and it only costs a little over $1,000. I mean, all the prices I'm going to give you today are the prices as of right now. You know, I can't guarantee that's the way it's going to be in the future if you're watching this video. But right now, it's just a little over $1,000. That's a really good deal. All right, now let's move forward, though. And all the generators I'm going to talk about from here on are inverter generators. So the next one on the list is the Genmax 9,000 watt inverter generator. Now, it only produces 62 decibels of noise, and that means that it's at least 10 decibels less than the Duramax. And you may think, well, I mean, just 10 decibels, but actually in real world usage, those 10 decibels are huge. And remember, too, that because it's an inverter generator, the electricity it produces is going to be really nice and clean. It has a 50 amp plug right on the side of the generator, so you can just plug right into it. Now, it weighs a lot. It's the heaviest of the group. It's at 259 pounds, and it costs about $2,000 to buy. Okay, let's move on to choice number 3, and that's the Champion 4,500 watt inverter. Now, this Champion has a noise level of around 61 decibels, so that's pretty good. It only weighs 95 pounds. But now you may be saying, hey, wait a minute, 4,500 watts of power, how's that going to handle a 50 amp RV that could be at 12,000 watts of power? Well, here's the way you can work this situation. Champion makes a parallel cable that can be used with 2 of their inverters. So let's say you get 2 of these Champion 4,500 watt inverter generators, and that means you would have up to 9,000 watts of power to use when you plug them in together with this parallel cable. And that's a lot of really good power for you to use. Now, the really good thing is that that parallel cable comes with a 50 amp plug. So you can plug right in to the 50 amp receptacle right on the parallel cable. The cost of the Champion 4,500 watt set is about $1,700 for both inverters and the parallel kit as well. Now, let's move on to my last suggestion. That is a Win 3,800 watt inverter generator, and the noise level drops even further, goes down to 57 decibels. It's going to weigh about 99 pounds. It too comes with a parallel cable. So let's say you had 2 3,800 watt wind inverter generators, you could connect them together with that cable. The only caveat here is that the cable maxes out at 6,000 watts. So the most you're ever going to get out of putting these 2 generators together would be 6,000 watts. But that's still quite a bit. And again, you get the 50 amp plug, the 50 amp receptacle for your cord from your RV. Now, the cost of 2 of these generators with the parallel kit is only $1,200 at this point. So a pretty economical way to go. Now, a lot of RVers say out there that they really can run their 50 amp RV off of 6,000 watts of power. Some say even less. But let's say that you're a little concerned about that. Well, here's another suggestion. Micro Air makes an easy start product that can be installed on your air conditioners. In fact, you can actually install it yourself if you're a little handy. And what this product does is lower the startup power requirements for your air conditioners, and it lowers them considerably. So that means you need less power to run then your air conditioning systems. And as a result of that, you really can just buy lower wattage generators as a result. So that's something that you might consider to help out with this WIN inverter generator setup. Now, there's a few points that I want to make here before I close out that are very important. Number one, the noise ratings I just gave you, they're nothing more than a guide because actually they're based on the generator running at like quarter to half power. And when your air conditioners are going to be running in your RV, well, the generators are going to be running at much higher than that. So the decibel levels I just gave you are more of a way to compare one generator with another generator as far as noise is concerned. But what I recommend is before you buy any generator, try to get a demonstration of it to find out how much noise it actually produces and put it under load. And that way you can really know what it's going to sound like. The next point I want to make is that you're going to need to find a place for your generator in your RV rig setup. And you're going to need to make sure that it's well ventilated. You don't want to get any of those generator fumes coming back in to your RV. So before you buy your generator, plan out in advance where you're going to put it so that it will be safe. Now, the last point I want to make is that if you follow good weather, and what I mean by good weather is not really hot weather, so if you follow good weather more, then you need less generator power because you're going to be using less air conditioning as you go. So that's another strategy to keep your power requirements for generators down as low as possible. All right, well, I think you can see from what we've talked about today that off-grid RV power usage can be a real challenge, especially when you have a 50 amp service in your RV. But if you have the right plan and you have the right generator, well, then you can achieve power management success for your 50 amp RV. And that's it for now. Have safe and happy travels, my friends. Until next time.